Are you ready to go outside? There's the snow.
Welcome back to my channel, everybody. My name is Meredith. If you're new here, we're going to be talking about historical costume. Specifically today, we're going to chat a little bit about the 16th century. During the 16th century, Europe was experiencing what was known as the Little Ice Age. It was an event where the climate was drastically changing in Europe, and I believe in some other parts of the world as well, which created a super cold, long winter. A lot of crops failed during this time, and lo and behold, people had to adapt. Earlier this week, I dug out of, I believe it was 3 to 4 feet, depending on where the drifts were, at work and at home. And it kind of got me thinking about how my counterparts would have interacted with this and how they would have dressed. Realistically, I know everyone who's done living history has had somebody walk up if they're in a public-facing venue and ask, "Aren't you hot in that?" I've gotten it a lot. It's almost become a reenactor, like running gag to some level. And this winter, my answer to that is honestly going to be only if I want to be. If I don't want to be hot, I can layer my clothing in such a way where I stay very cool and comfortable and use the natural fibers to kind of regulate my body temperature. And that same thought process also works when it's super cold. You can regulate your body temperature using natural fibers quite often. I personally love wool. The outfit that you're seeing me spin around in a lot of our shots today is actually a cotton velveteen. So just as a quick disclaimer, I am fully aware that cotton velveteen was not available in 16th century Europe, but it is a pretty close approximation based on what I had available when I was making these outfits. So it does the job and it keeps me nice and warm, which is kind of what the job was being asked of the fiber I was going to use. So let's talk a little bit about these layers, right? Your camicia in 16th century Italy, since that's the example of the outfit that I'm going to be showing you guys in these clips, is generally going to be made out of linen. It's going to wick moisture away from you. So if you've ever been in a cold, damp climate and then been in a cold, dry climate, you're going to understand there's a big difference for your personal comfort and your health if you're cold but dry versus cold and wet. Cold and wet, usually you get sicker a lot more and you feel the cold a lot more intensely. So having that wicking ability in your base layer with a camicia is really handy. The next layer that I was wearing is my red velveteen satana. It's in the Venetian style with that ladder lacing design. It opens and closes in the front. I specifically picked that one for this cold weather day to demonstrate to you guys I don't even need to be buttoned up all the way to my core, everything closed. If I'm using my layers in a good way, that little exposed bit of camicia in the front where everything can kind of circulate in and out actually was kind of helping to ventilate me a bit. It worked just fine. I was super comfortable. It's only 13 degrees in that photo, or in this video clip that you're gonna see here. The last layer I'm wearing in this particular outfit that you're gonna see is my Zamara or my Ropa. It's made out of a black cotton velveteen, and if you've known me on the internet for a while, you'll probably recognize it from my second entry into the Italian Renaissance Costuming Challenge on the Realm of Venus. I'll put a link in the description to that amazing website. They recently wrapped up their 10th one of those competitions, and you just gotta go check out all that work. It's amazing. But I digress. Anyway, the Ropa ends up being sort of like a giant robe. Ropa, robe. If you speak Spanish, you'll probably see our connection there. My particular one was based on a print in Alcega. It's a Spanish tailoring manual, and it was specifically, I believe, a woman's mourning robe with Turkish sleeves. So that's where that shorter style sleeve comes from, and I was no less warm using that shorter sleeve because I had the undersleeve of my satana attached to it. In fact, having multiple layers of those velvet sleeves probably would have made me way too hot, to be honest with you. So having those layers of different sleeves, or sleeves where you could, if you're cold and sitting in your house, pull your arms in front to the big wing sleeves, or if you need to do something, stick your arm through the slit and start doing some active activity. Those would both be really amazing styles, and it makes a lot of sense why they were so popular during the mini Ice Age. So some fun accessories that you may or may not see in this particular set of images that will help keep you warmer are going to be, I usually wear boots when I'm walking around like this. There are a couple examples of women's riding boots from the period, but there's not a whole lot. Generally speaking, if you are fancy enough to wear that kind of velvet, you are probably fancy enough not to be walking around outside too much unless you chose to. I would not recommend running amok in chapines while you're dealing with this kind of weather, just because I can't imagine those would be awesome with ice. I mean, unless you're super talented at them, go for it, you do you. At least it's a wedge heel instead of a spike stiletto like our modern heels. A couple other things that are super helpful. Partlets, Giornias, any of those sorts of things. This one is actually in a German style. It's lined in wool, it's got a fun little tapestry, and it's perfect for when I'm walking in and out of the house with the dog, or just doing a couple little things if I don't want to have my heat up really high in the house. This thing's amazing. Silk, linen, wool, anything that helps to fill in this neckline. Obviously, the denser the fiber is, the warmer you're going to be, and the less exposure those square necklines are going to have. Gloves can also be super handy. They were really popular during the 16th century to help keep your hands warm. There's lots of surviving examples of gloves as well as just mittens. So I would recommend investing in a pair of those. You can also get a set on clearance this time of year, online, anywhere. Get some cute little leather gloves and sew a fancy cuff to it, and that'll get you through sort of that impression look to get out and moving around and keep your hands warm when you're at events. And then if you really want to get fancy, you can try and make some. My understanding is they're not super super hard, but I haven't tried it, so I'm not gonna really speak from experience on that point. Two of my favorite accessories to help keep myself warm would be a muff. There is a version of it that comes out in the 16th century. I'll probably be making one of those here soon for you guys to get to watch for a friend of mine. They're a super easy project. They're usually lined with fur at this point and stuffed with insulation. You can stick your hands in there, keep them warm, or you can unbutton the bottoms and kind of just set them in your lap while you're doing stuff. The last big one of these accessories I'm going to talk about is actually something I'm not wearing in this photo shoot that we're watching. You really might want to consider a hat. Most of your heat is actually going to be leaving the top of your head, and by wearing caps and coifs and little knit bonnets, any of that sort of thing, you're going to find veils. If you're doing veils and mantling off of your head, you're going to stay a lot warmer. You're going to be losing less heat. I can't help but recommend it. I am wearing a little silk veil in this, but I'm not sure it's really doing a whole lot to keep me warm rather than just floating in a really pretty breeze behind me. All right, so that's this week's video. I hope it was helpful and informational for you. I had a lot of fun getting dressed up and going to run around in the snow. And if you didn't know, Colorado gets the most snow of the entire year right here in the early spring, around the end of February to March. So I had a lot of fun doing some late season snow shoots, and we're going to be working on some plans for our next couple weeks. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and click that like button. If you want to see more content like this, feel free to do that. Subscribe. I post at least every other week. I'm trying to be a little more consistent in that here in 2021. And I hope you guys have a great day. Stay safe out there, and don't forget to bundle up if you need to. Bye.
Zoe, you want to go outside? I shoveled for you. Yeah. All right, we can be done.